This programme was made with the support of the Broadcasting Authority of Ireland.
I love the 40 foot regular swimmer here.
The 40 foot has a draw and a pull.
It's such a beautiful, God-forsaken, ghastly place, and there's a great attraction to come down here.
From dawn to dusk, you have people swimming here.
We've just been swimming in the 40 foot.
It is absolutely addictive.
I wouldn't miss it for anything. It really is important.
Okay, it's chilly when you get in, but the buzz you get when you come out, it really sets you up for the day.
And when it's rough like this, there's a much better buzz from it.
Well, it's not addictive in the sense of, say, that people would understand alcohol or cigarettes or any of those things. It's only addictive in the sense that it is a joy and a pleasure that you'd hate to miss.
60 years I'm coming here to the 40 foot, and by Jesus, I never got tired of it.
You have to experience it to get the buzz. I feel so good and so invigorated and ready to go for the week.
The Lord is looking down on the 40 foot.
The 40 foot, located in Sandy Cove in South County Dublin, is perhaps the most famous sea bathing place in all of Ireland. A magic place that has played host to many sea bathers over the centuries. So why is the 40 foot so popular down through time? Well, I recently visited the place to find out.
I think the main draw of the 40 foot is, it's not a beach as such, so you don't get sands in your pants and in your socks, etc., etc. And whenever you come, there's always a depth of water to swim in, and I think that is the main draw for people coming here. Then the addition of, everybody's mad and everybody's swimming in the sea, and that's the main connection. And through that, there's friendships and things born and, develop, and it's a fun place to be, because we're all a bit crazy.
Well, I think it's a good area to swim because you can swim here any time of the day, whether the tide's high or low, and it has good history, and it generally has great access, and everybody seems to enjoy themselves here.
Once you get into it, that's it. It's just you get hooked. That's it. Simple as that. You get hooked. You miss a day, it's like, you should tell yourself, it's like an old drug. It is. You can't do without it. Well, I love it. Every time now, if I miss a day, 2 days, I can come down and swim twice a day. No problem. I just love it that much. I know you meet people, different people, and it's great.
It is absolutely addictive. The buzz you get from it when it's chilly when you get in, but the buzz you get when you come out, it really sets you up for the day. It's absolutely indescribable. I do my best to enthuse other people, but you have to experience it to get the buzz. There is nothing like it. I feel so good and so invigorated and ready to go for the week and really looking forward.
It makes me feel great in the morning. It's tough sometimes getting myself out of the bed, but I always know that I'm going to feel great afterwards, and it gives you a lovely little tingle, kind of like something else we all know, but different.
People come at different times of the day, whatever suits your timetable. I'm a lunchtime person, but there's a 7:30 in the morning, there's a 10 o'clock after Mass, 11 o'clock, and so forth throughout the day. So you get, on average, in the middle of winter, about 200 people a day, I'd say, would swim here in the middle of winter.
It's such a beautiful, God-forsaken, ghastly place, and there's a great attraction to come down here, and the cross-section of people is so fabulously interesting, from High Court judges to criminals, and beautiful women, and everybody looks the same naked. You wouldn't know where they came from. So all I have to say this morning is that I'm afraid that I might be taken away by men in a van with the white coats, So, adios, amigos.
The 40 foot is nestled in a rocky outcropping about 100 feet from the famous Joyce's Martello Tower in Sandy Cove, County Dublin. As you climb a winding road just past Sandy Cove Point, you come upon the entrance to the 40 foot and walk in. the first thing you notice is the lack of modern amenities or conveniences to make one's swim more enjoyable or easy. But rather, things at the 40 foot are very laissez-faire and relaxed.
On the ocean blue and the tidal swell, each special day is cast forever in remembrance, where magic memories last. The 40 foot is a place of charm when the tide is still and high. May we linger here and swim a while as the lovely seagulls fly.
And believe it or not, ever before the 40 foot became renowned as a sea bathing place par excellence, the area in and around it was famed for its high quality granite stone. South County Dublin local historian Colin Scudds.
Round about the 40 foot. If you walk up the road from Sandy Cove, look at low tide, look over the wall instead of going into the 40 foot and look down onto the rocks. You'll find, if you look very carefully, holes drilled in the rocks there, and that's where the rock was quarried. In the early 1800s, the rock was taken from all round Dorky and indeed Sandy Cove and Dunleary, in fact. There's lots of quarries. If you look at the early maps, the 1837 Ordnance Survey map, you'll see a lot of quarries, small quarries marked, between Dunleary and Dorky.
Granite quarried from the area in and around the 40 foot was used in the construction of the famed South Bull Wall in Dublin Bay in the 18th and 19th centuries. To explain, here's 40 foot historian Peter Pearson, who co-wrote a definitive book on the 40 foot called The 40 Foot, a Monument to Sea Bathing.
Long ago it was just a rocky outcrop with nothing. There was no steps, no access to the sea. So the first buildings really there were, I suppose, the little pier at Sandy Cove, and following on from that you had a lot of quarrying there. So a lot of stone was extracted to build the south wall for Dublin Port. So that would account for, if you look at the stones around the 40 foot, there's a lot of, you can see where holes are being drilled and rocks sheared off and different things like that. So that quarrying, I suppose, led to shipping activity, and the first lifeboat in Dublin Bay was located in Sandy Cove Harbour, just round the back of the 40 foot.
Come all you bold land lovers and listen to my song. It's only 13 verses, so it won't detain you long. It's all about the 40 foot, a bathing spot sublime, where many a brave sea bather likes to pass the time. I hereby sing of the 40 foot, a bathing spot renowned, situate in Sandy Cove, just south of Dublin town. If you descend her rocky steps alongside Dublin Bay, it's swimmers galore you'll find there every hour of each fine day.
And staying with the historical development of the 40 foot, by the early 19th century the Napoleonic Wars were raging across Europe. Fearing that Ireland would be invaded by the French, the British Crown decided in the year 1804 to construct a Martello Tower defensive gun emplacement, and also an artillery battery on Sandy Cove Point, just overlooking that foreshore area now occupied by the 40 foot.
The next major thing, it was of course the building of the Martello Towers and the battery, which people sometimes just take for granted, but the battery is actually a huge feature on Sandy Cove Point. That huge beautiful granite wall, the height of it and all, it's a fantastic feature. And in a way the 40 foot is like the foreshore of the battery, and I think the 40 foot owes a lot of its presence to the Martello Tower and the battery, maybe even the name, because it was occupied by the 40th Foot Regiment, and maybe this was the origin of the name.
The battery or fort, which forms the massive cut-stone bulwark between the 40 foot and the general public, was erected by the British Admiralty shortly after the construction of the Martello Tower. The battery occupies much of the rocky outcrop which comprises Sandycove Point, and in fact the granite bedrock rises through the fort to form its highest point. During the Second World War, a searchlight and an anti-aircraft gun were installed on the battery, with the gun being used once towards the end of the war. The main function of the fortification was to resist naval attack by means of large swivelling guns, and a total garrison of 36 artillerymen controlled the Martello Tower and battery in its heyday during the height of the Napoleonic Wars. It was equipped with 24-pounder guns, which had a radius of 1 mile and could cover the whole section of the coastline.
And although neither the Martello Tower nor the battery ever saw active service, nevertheless the soldiers occupying them would have inevitably utilised the 40-foot sea bathing facilities lying on their doorstep.
And it was garrisoned, I believe, right up to the middle of the 19th century, maybe longer. So there were soldiers there, and there was no water for bathing, so it would appear that they probably used the sea for bathing purposes. And that may be partly how it developed as an ideal bathing place. There was, and eventually, as we know, the society, the bathers, was formed, and steps were carved, and other facilities eventually created after the 1880s.
And as historian Peter Pearson just touched on, the first major development to the 40-foot as a sea bathing place came with the establishment of Sandycove Bathers Association in 1880. The historic roots of Sandycove Bathers Association and also our modern 40-foot lie in the growth of Dunleary and Sandycove as residential areas during the 19th century. This suburban growth created a population with recreational needs, and the 40-foot was eventually established by some of the more enterprising and public-spirited inhabitants of the area. However, it's worth noting that sea bathing in Dublin had always been popular, especially from the 18th century onwards. Peter Pearson.
There's a lovely painting painted by O'Connor, I think it was, in the about 1790s, early 1800s, and it shows people bathing in Dunleary before the piers were built at Salt Hill, and they were bathing naked because apparently that was the way people bathed, and this idea of costumes is a sort of a Victorian notion. So sea bathing became popular in the 18th century as a sort of a health thing and a recreational thing, and from there I suppose it developed, and in the 19th century you see a lot of growth of sport and sporting activities. I mean, nearly all the organised sports that we know today, like golf and cricket and football and tennis, swimming, all these things they became organised in the late 19th century. And I think the Sandycove Bathers Association sort of fitted into that idea in the 1880s, that we'll have an organised place for people to come.
And it's also worth noting that before the association busily got to work improving the 40-foot, the place was just a mass of granite with no facilities whatsoever. 40-foot folklorist Martin Miller.
At that time it was called the 40-foot hole. You couldn't see out to sea. Men actually got into the water by jumping in and then heaving themselves out by rope. So in 1880, a group of them got together, probably wealthy, well off rather than wealthy, and they raised £1,000, which would be worth about maybe today is 200,000, 250,000 euro. And they got permission from the authorities, and they blasted out all the rock. They brought in masons, and you can see now there's no electricity in those days, but you can see the ridges of holes where the hand drills went in. Dynamite was placed in, and they blasted and blasted. And when they were finished, there was a big hole at the front. On one side there, on the right hand side looking out the hole, is a rock. It's called the Gladstone rock, called after it looks like the Prime Minister of England, Gladstone. On the left is called the Peak Rock, and that's what was left of the whole thing. So after doing all that, so to the starboard side, you would say, you have the Gladstone rock, and to the port side, you'd have the Peak Rock. Then they brought craftsmen in and carved out the steps. Now this rock, by the way, you're seeing around here is probably the hardest rock. It's really the hardest rock in Western Europe.
And staying with the founding of Sandycove Bathers Association in the 1880s, historian Peter Pearson shares his views.
I think they were just a group of voluntary individuals who got together and decided that this was an ideal place for swimming, and there was always water there, and they set about, they had a small annual subscription, and then they had a voluntary donation could be made if you wanted to towards the upkeep. But I mean, that was minimal. It meant, a bit of money for liming the steps, keeping the seaweed off the steps, and repairs to railings and different things like that. So they were just a band of people who came together, and a very broad cross-section of people. I mean, all sorts. And even today, I think it's true to say that all sorts of people use the place.
Before vital renovations began to be made to the 40 foot from the 1880s onwards, the bathing place was simply a massive outcrop of rocks jutting into the Irish Sea, and sea bathers often had great difficulty entering and exiting the water safely, especially if the sea was choppy. The improvements that were made from the 1880s onwards consisted of carving steps that led in and out of the water into the rocks fronting the sea, adding iron handrails onto the stairs and steep rocky parts, and also constructing stone and concrete benches and a granite screening wall on the easterly edge of the main platform. These improvements lasted over 100 years until 1994, when minor changes were done to the 40 foot by reinforcing the cement platform. So most of the vital improvements that were made to the 40 foot over a century ago remain to this day.
And we'll deal further with the historical development of the 40 foot later in this series. But veering away from things historical for the moment, believe it or not, the 40 foot does not receive any money from public funds for its upkeep. Instead, the daily maintenance of the place is undertaken by a dedicated group of die-hard volunteers. Now, one such volunteer is Tommy Ryan, and I had this question to pose him.
How many years have you been involved with the 40 foot for yourself?
I've been involved since 1968, been coming down here. Now, I haven't been involved, well, just coming down and starting swimming, but then I got involved in it. I got on the committee here about 1973 or 74, I've been on it since. It's very easy to go on the committee, it's very hard to get off it, because it's all voluntary work. No one gets paid down here. It's all done for nothing.
That's remarkable, Tommy. I don't actually think people realise how much work. I've been interviewing the various historians now over the last short while about the 40 foot. There's a phenomenal amount of work that has gone into this place down the ages. What kind of work now?
Well, a lot of damage being done by this rough seas here in the winter. And we don't have to replace railings and concrete and all that get broken up, because people would fall on very easily, And we put a collection table out there, we call it a begging plate, and anything we collect we send back on the 40 foot. And it's all for the maintenance of it, And a lot of work to be done. We put all these railings around here, and just for safety's sake, for people and all that, stop them falling and all that, help on the way in down the steps and that. But a lot of people don't realise what the amount of work out there. We have to sweep and clean, and that all costs money to do all these things.
And 40-foot historian Frank Mullen had the following to say concerning the work involved in maintaining the 40-foot.
The maintenance of the actual platforms around, because the gale force winds can be very, very cruel here in the winter months, and they can cause devastation. I mean, we had some small example of it here, despite the reinforcements and all that have been put into the concrete bases on the areas where one changes and walks around the platforms, call it what you will, away from the sea. The amount of work that's been done in those areas over recent years, say over the last 10, 15 years, has been enormous. And with modern engineering as it is, they were able to reinforce the landing stage here with iron grids embedded in the concrete, which had a great effect in limiting the amount of damage that the storms and the vicious waves. I mean, for the first time last winter, we were here sitting where we're sitting now, watching the waves coming over the wall of the tower there, which we never saw before. And that caused some damage, but nothing near as much as it would have done 20 years ago. And then the lads get contractors in to reinforce and repair that. And years ago, when the diving boards were there, before it became inappropriate to have them because of insurance problems, they had the place every spring. They had contractors in to re-erect the diving boards and to repair any damage that was caused during the winter months, so that the place is always in good shape, you know. And that came out of voluntary, the payment for that came out of voluntary subscriptions, as indeed does the payment for all things down here.
To see there's a lot of damage to us. People don't realise the amount of damage the sea can do. I say, no, if you look down, you see the damage that's been done now, the wall being knocked down and half of the platform being done. We'll have to get all that done, like, and it costs a lot of money to do that.
How much money are we talking about, Tommy? Just even for the damage that was done there this winter?
We're expecting about maybe 30,000 to get that done, because we had to get done by professional people. People know that what they're doing, like, you know. You just can't get any Tom, Dick and Harry like to do it, because down here at it...
30,000? Wow.
About that, yeah, like, you know, because, well, things are very dear, like, you know, but the amount of work that's involved in it, like, you know. Like, you have to have heavy machinery and all that, and you have to dig it up and reinforce and all that, like. So, you know, that's it. And it's around the back and all this damage, so, but it's a big area to be done, like, you know.
So where exactly will the funds come from to repair the storm damage done to the 40-foot as a result of the recent winter just gone by? As Frank Mullen just mentioned, most comes from voluntary subscriptions and donations. 40-footer Tommy Ryan.
We don't ask people for money. No, we don't put a set price on it. They give what they have to. Some people give 20, some people give 50, some people give 10. It's like we don't ask them, but just give what you can. Then we put it on the table, and we call it bag and play. And we have the sign there saying like it's all voluntary, but little helps, you know. So that's what it's all about, like, you know. Without that thing, we wouldn't be able to maintain it.
And to discover more about the celebrated 40-foot, such as how the place got its name, then make sure to catch our next number 2 programme in this 6-part 40-foot series. This programme was made with the support of the Broadcasting Authority of Ireland. Songs and music by Cliff Wedgbury.
One thing which always amused me, when you know you are going to jump into freezing water, people say, enjoy it. And I think it's the last expression I will think of.
The 40-foot has a draw and a pull.
The water is very nice, very refreshing. When you hit the bloody thing, you come alive suddenly, and you're suddenly away like shot.
From dawn to dusk, you people swimming here.
We swim here regularly.
I find it very invigorating to swim down here, winter and summer.
You just feel so good after.
Exactly.
You have to get changed quickly afterwards because otherwise you can get kind of chilled.
It's a great place to come to chill out in the relaxing sense of the word.
It's free. It's completely free. You don't need club membership. You don't need to be feeling guilty about you're paying your membership in the gym. It's free.
Enthusiastic to the local area. The guys do a lot of work in keeping the place clean and keeping it well managed.
60 years I'm coming here to the 40 foot, and by Jesus, I never got tired of it.
On the ocean blue and the tidal swell, each special day is cast forever in remembrance, where magic memories last. The 40 foot is a place of charm when the tide is still and high. May we linger here and swim a while as the lovely seagulls fly. Come all you Borderland lovers and listen to my song. It's only 13 verses, so it won't detain you long. It's all about the 40 foot, a bathing spot sublime, where many a brave sea bather likes to pass the time. I hereby sing of the 40 foot, a bathing spot renowned, situate in Sandy Cove, just south of Dublin town. If you descend her rocky steps alongside Dublin Bay, it's swimmers galore you'll find there every hour of each fine day. In bathing togs all sizes and many colours too, if it's thrills and spills you're after, this is the place for you, where people from all walks of life assemble, I declare, to swim the chilly Irish Sea while others stand and stare. Swimming in the icy brine each waking winter hour, those 40 footers love their time in the cold sea's awesome power. In every sort of nasty climb, hail, wind or snow, you'll catch those tough and hardy types braving the depths below. Just how the place